Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissack and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry. Oh my gosh. And now I'm so worried about saying Dawn's last name. I basically just forgot my last name.
Hey, we do this long enough. Everything's going to happen, Dana.
Oh my gosh. So funny. I am so excited. Wait, before we introduce Dawn, Linda, where are you in the world today?
I am actually in Ohio sitting with your amazing leaders. I'm going to steal all of them. They're so good. I'm super pumped. I am sitting by, who am I sitting by? Sorry. Your
Dylan
team.
or Josh?
Josh. I'm sitting by Josh, and Dylan's right behind me. So it's amazing. And the class is going really good.
I told Dylan earlier, I said, make sure that, will you just do me one favor today? Other than take good notes, will you get a picture of you and Josh with Linda? Because I love to have, like, I wanted to journal about that when the people that you lead get to learn from somebody who you've got to learn so much from. And I was, and I like to save pictures. So I was like, make sure so he sent me one. So I was like, okay, good. That was my ask of the day.
He does exactly what Dana says. And he says he has to post 5 times a week. And so many of them have to be videos.
Yes, I love it. Well, I have been super excited to have our guest on today, Dawn Cazedessus. I got it. Okay. Couldn't know mine, but have yours, Dawn. No, Dawn is a friend of ours inside of the Keller Williams ecosystem, but also she is a new author of a book that I think is going to just resonate with so many people. First of all, the title, Dawn, Trailer Park CEO, I'm like, who would not want to read that just because of the title?
Yeah, so well, I will tell you too, Dana, so often people are like, wait, so Dawn, you own trailer parks? Linda, RV parks?
Yes.
They will think that sometimes. I'm like, not exactly. I came from it, but that's good enough.
Well, Linda always has a question that she kicks us off with. So Linda, go for it. And then we'll talk about the book.
Dawn, we like to start with this. You were born and then what happened? And if you have to, we always say if you have to, do Cliff Note version, but bring us forward to today. How did the book happen? Give us your journey in life and real estate, and then kind of tell us, how did this book even come about and what is it about?
Yeah, I love that question, Linda, because I believe that we were all born for a purpose and we were never mistakes. Yet my birth was, in the eyes and the optics of it, a big mistake. I was born to two teenagers who fell in love. Wow. And at the age of 15, my mom was 15 when she became pregnant for me, turned 16 just before I was born, and then a dad that was 18. And so it started off rough, as you can imagine, with teenage parents, and just through a life of hardship as our family grew. And so that's why the book is called Trailer Park CEO, because I grew up in a trailer park. That is what young teenage parents in poverty lived in. And ultimately the purpose of the book is to speak to people, let them know that good things do come out of trailer parks. And my voice in it is speaking to other women, and to let them know that no matter what you were handed, you were created for a purpose. And that life is much bigger than the trailer park or whatever situation they're in. We can totally get to the other side of it and do great things. And for years, I was shameful about that birth. I was shameful about that background. It wasn't things that I wanted to share. And it wasn't until later in my life that I realized that I wouldn't get to be here today if I didn't get to experience the things that I've experienced and learn how to fail forward through them.
Love that.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind, and I thought about this last night when I was thinking about your book and thinking about you today, and I think it's a question none of us can really answer, but do you think because of your journey, starting off in life, kind of, like you said, just not in the best of situations, do you think that helped you have grit, or do you think you came out of it because you had grit? Which one do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think in life, we actually do things that we see modeled to us.
Mm.
And I believe people who have good work ethic, they usually grow up in families who demonstrated good work ethic. And so one of the positive things about growing up in a trailer park is I was surrounded by blue collar people that had grit, and they had grit because they had to put food on the table. They had to take care of their families, right? And I was blessed that my mom actually really modeled that for us. She worked really hard, long hours. My dad passed away my senior year of high school, so she became a single mom and raising 3 kids, and did what she had to do to make sure that we were provided for. And so I got to see on a daily basis what grit was. Now, in the book, I talk about that we actually have to reframe grit, though, because we also see a lot of times people, they'll wear grit as a badge of honor. And they'll go through life and they think if I just grind my way through, especially in our corporate America world, and my goodness, in real estate, as we get to see it all the time, and then they wake up with burnout or the lack of purpose into things, right? And they're like questioning of why they're doing what they're doing. And so I reframe grit, and we should grit for purpose. And you can't do that unless you know your purpose. And when you know like why you were created and what you were created for, then grit is reframed in a positive way, because I wake up every day wanting to do the grit work because it's on purpose work.
So true.
I love that, Dawn. I actually just was reading something, and I'm trying to remember where it was, and I can't, but it was saying about how we talk about people who are like addicts or addicted to alcohol, or they're addicted to, I don't know, whatever, drugs or porn or whatever, but we don't talk about people who are addicted to work. And there's so many people who are addicted to their work. And I mean, I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, but I love that you said it's okay to have grit, but grit for purpose. And I think that is absolutely reframing that, and using your talents that God gave you instead of just using it to, take your mind off of something else.
That's interesting, Dana, you say that, because I remember Joe Polish. He's big into addiction because he's an ex-addict, and he does a lot for that community, raises money and does stuff. And he says, what we don't really think about addiction is the truth is it's actually solving a problem for people. And back to what you said, Dawn, I think sometimes the problem it's solving is a hole they're trying to fill because they don't know purpose. And I'm I have my own addiction. I'm going to admit it, it's food. It's carbs and food. It's not alcohol, thank God, because I watched my mother and father do that. But I do think that it's that aligns with what you're talking about purpose. I think if people don't have their purpose, they start to fill that hole with something else.
Yeah. Well, I believe we all have addictions, all of us. If we were, to put the magnifying glass on our lives, we'll all see those tendencies to do that. And it's because we're wired for work. We're wired for those things, biblically speaking, we are, right? Yeah. And where we get off track is when, like you just said, Linda, when we're trying to fill these holes that aren't meant to be filled by these things. They're meant to be filled by our purpose and why we were created. And so that's why I had to reframe it, because yes, Dana, I was addicted to busyness, addicted to like the idea of success, not because I there was a time that I was addicted to those things. I wasn't even successful, but I was addicted to the idea of it, right? And it's because we have this vision of what things should look like for ourselves that are not in alignment for who we are.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay, give us a little bit of the premise of the book, because it's out, right? I mean, it just came out. And then I want you to talk about your events too.
Yeah, so it actually comes out to the bookstores on September 2nd. We're in the pre-order. Yeah, we're in the pre-order stages. Super excited about it, on all of the major handles for it as well. And so the book was written, the subtitle is The 12 Leadership Cornerstones to Becoming a Godly Woman of Influence. And the reason I wrote it is because, as you guys have, we've read so many of these personal growth books, these business books, and a lot of them were written by men that I am so grateful for. And I am who I am today because I got to read a lot of those books and apply them. But I couldn't find anything that was specifically speaking to women and our differences and how we show up and how we succeed, and also apply them biblically, like how I can go and look and just say, like, how do I align this? How do I align my faith with my business and to becoming who I need to be to live out my purpose? And so when I, over the years, I like to call it a 10-year passion project. So over the years, I've journaled and reflected. And every year, when I looked back, there were these cornerstones that just kept showing up. And when in my early life, when I was a kid, I used to collect rocks. I'd go hiking out in the woods and I would pick up these rocks and I would collect them, sometimes write on them. And I started to just write some of these words down that I would recognize in my life, like grit, like discipline, like faith, like communication. When I was learning how not to speak like I was from the trailer park and to be able to learn how to enunciate my words, on all of those things. And then when I just stacked those rocks up, I realized that I had really over a lifetime built up these qualities that came from 12 stones that have lined my path. And so when we were writing the book and, you're talking to my publisher and how to really do the outline and put all this together, it became so clear that in each of those stones, we all have easy access to them. We just don't always take the time to really dig into them. And then also that showed up is that we're actually in the book, the readers will see that there's actually a 13th stone. So, and the reason there's a 13th stone is because when we were finished and just sitting around, we're having a cup of coffee and talking about the book, generosity came up. And just like how in my life, generosity has shown up so many times in my life. And I get to stand on the shoulders of some very generous people that have paved the way for me. And so in Louisiana, in South Louisiana, we have a term that is called lagniappe. And lagniappe means a little extra something. You might kind of recognize it as the baker's dozen, right? It's just like in Louisiana, we just believe we're going to give you something, we're going to give you a little extra, right? So it's the lagniappe of things. And so in the book, we have a lagniappe stone, and that stone is generosity. And it is the last stone that I talk about because at the end of the day, when we arrive and we step into our fulfillment of our purpose, the next thing that we're supposed to do is be very generous and give back and pave the way for other people. And so I conclude the book with that and saying that once you've learned these things and you've applied it, to be able to go and give of your time, of your energy. See, often we think it's just money, right? People, oh yes, I'm, give money. Yes, that is one way, but I speak deeper on like our time. You guys know, as busy ladies that you are, sometimes our time is the most precious thing. We write the check. It's harder to get on the calendar. And so given our time.
Do you have, Dawn? I love the generosity. I love that, the 13th. And you just made me think one of Linda and I's favorite people that we learn a lot from is from Louisiana also, and that's Pastor Chris Hodges. Linda?
Yes. Well, he's actually in Birmingham for the Highlands Church.
He's from
Baton Rouge. He's from Baton Rouge. Yes, he sure is. So, yes, and he is outstanding.
When you said we have the extra term, and I was like, that sounds like something that Chris Hodges would say. I love it.
He believes in lagniappe.
Of the 12, do you have a favorite, or is there one that you could maybe just go a little deep with and share with our listeners?
Yeah, so I have really thought about that because I've been asked that before. And when we were writing it, obviously my publisher, and just in coffee conversations, asked me that question. And that's a tough one because, when you really break it down, like my first knee-jerk reaction was going to be faith. It should be faith, right? It's like those things. But when I really took time to reflect, my favorite one would have to be fail forward.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because at any time during my journey, I decided if I would have decided not to have to fail forward, to embrace that concept, I wouldn't be talking to you today. The book would have never been written. And I talk about in the book that we've got to reframe failure. I had the opportunity several years ago to coaching skills camp. You guys know about that within our Keller Williams system. And we had to break the board, and I remember when I had to go right on there, my biggest fear, and I struggled with it, holding that board. And I was like, it's fear of failure. because failure to me would send me back to the trailer park. Like
Oh, yeah.
if I was going to fail, I was going to go backwards. And to me, it was a life sentence back to the trailer park. And so it was like, I was doing everything to not fail. And that just doesn't work and all successful people become successful because of their failures. And so I had to reframe it. So the very first thing I had to do was take the word fail and break it down to really what it stands for. And F for me stands for forgiveness. Like I had to, first of all, just do a ton of forgiveness to people who have failed me. Yet really what it was about was forgiving myself. I had to forgive myself that in my failure moments, that it's okay to fail, that it wasn't a sin, that it wasn't this big, terrible thing. Like it's okay that and I had to forgive myself. And then the A in fail stands for acceptance. I just have to accept it. It's done. I don't need to go into we got the victim versus accountable, and I had to literally say it's accept it for what it is. And then the I stands for inspect. I had to go and inspect it, because if I didn't inspect it, I wouldn't do the L, and the L is learn. I wouldn't be able to learn from it. And so in my life, I've been able to take all of my failures, and I've been able to now reframe that and use the forgive, the accept, the inspect, and the learn to be able to say, okay, how do I move forward now with this? And how do I not repeat those same patterns and be able to use them as stepping stones onto the next thing in my life? That has served me so well that it has to be my favorite stone, because I know that success is a sum of all of our failures. And because I am not where I want to be yet, I have to fail some more. Yeah. And so I have to wake up every day. It's almost like I have to wake up and say, okay, how do I fail today? What is that going to look like?
Dawn, this reminds me of, I love what Gary came out with at Family Reunion. And I know he's working on a book on fear, and I love this. But I loved, because it had a light bulb moment for me, because I have a very similar fear of going back to where it was before. And, they always say, when you look at people who really succeed, quite honestly, that I think they're either driven by a fear or a chip on their shoulder or something. But when you said that, I thought of the way Gary described people who are afraid of failure won't start, and people who are afraid of failing won't quit. So I think what you're afraid of is failing and going backwards, right? So that kept you in the game, all of the time, right? Because you don't really want to go back to where you were. And so I think being afraid of failing is a good thing, and being afraid of failure is not, because that's what's going to make you procrastinate and hold you back.
That's so good. That's a great reframe.
I love that. Dawn, what have been like one of the greatest, maybe just lessons or stories that you could share with our listeners of, doesn't necessarily have to be like a failure, but just going from where you were then to where you are today? Is there any story? We didn't send you these questions ahead of time, so hopefully they'll be whatever comes to mind. But is there any story or anything where you can really see, like, man, okay, when that happened, like that changed the trajectory for me?
Yeah. Well, it's 100% my mindset. I had to learn how to think differently. When you're in the whole saying that we are the five people, the average of the five people we hang out with, right? We all know that saying. We've all heard it. Well, I kept hearing that over and over again, yet I didn't really know how to apply it. And part of me, I'm such a relationship person that I was like, I don't know how to get relationships. Like, I'm not going to get rid of relationships. Like, this is like, I love people. I want to be, around people. And it wasn't until I recognized a pattern of my mindset that I was having some stinking thinking, that I was still, even though I didn't want to go back to the trailer park, I'm still thinking like that. And I had to make some changes, because if I didn't change my mindset, I might physically not live in a trailer park, but mentally I would stay there. And so the life changes for me was when I decided to take ownership of my thoughts, and to realize that just because this was a pattern and a programming that I've had for many, many years, I did not have to keep it that way, that I could choose to change that. And then Gary always tells us to think bigger. And, we would sit in these classes and like, think bigger. And I was like, I was like, I don't even know. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do I think on something that I have no clue what it even looks like, tastes like,
Mm.
smells like, feels like, right? And so I was wanting to go from like this little point all the way to over here to thinking really big. And what I realized is that it's not a big, huge leap. It's actually it's those little stepping stones along the way. And so I just had to start changing one thing at a time about the way I perceive things, the way my perspective was, the way I was thinking about things. And over time, it led to for me to be able to think bigger. And it also created opportunities for me, because if you would have told me that I was I was going to be CEO of a hospital, I would be like, yeah, it doesn't even make sense to be CEO of a hospital. If you would have told me I was going to be CEO of a law firm, I'm like, that would not make sense. If you would tell me that I'd be the regional director, of the Southeast region, I'd be like, yeah, I don't even know how that could happen. Right.
Yeah.
And now to be standing, on the things that I've done, it's made me realize that I know I'm not where I ultimately, want to be. I still have a ways to go. And yet it's still those little stepping stones that I have to keep going, have to keep surrounding myself with people like you and thinking different and being able to expose myself to different ways of thinking and experiencing things so that I can change that mentally and get myself out of that trailer park.
I love it. Was there, I know for me, there was, someone must have handed me a book or an audio tape years ago that made me start thinking positively about what was possible and all those things. Was there any books or people that you referenced, listening to Gary, but it sounded like you had some other roles even before real estate, right? So was there books or people? Because I agree with you, when you only see what you see around you until you see something different, you don't even know what you want, right? Was there a moment? And then do you have brothers and sisters, and did they come out of it as well as you did?
Oh,
That
Mm,
good
was my
great,
question.
great question. So, and I definitely want to answer that because I think that will encourage some of our listeners. So, I will tell you probably the pivotal point to where I recognized that things were different. I was actually a pharmaceutical rep for a large pharmaceutical company right out of college. And that was my first introduction to corporate. And I was there for a couple years and woke up one day with just this stirring inside of me
Mm.
that wasn't where I was supposed to be. But it checked all the boxes. I mean, I was, the first to graduate from college in my family, but the checking of the boxes, I made more, made more money than all of my family together,
Yeah.
and then I got the company car and I got the laptop before everybody had personal computers, right? And the beeper, I got that beeper, right? And so all of those things, like it was checking those boxes, but it was stirring inside of me. And it was actually, it was a John Maxwell, believe it or not, simulcast that
Wow.
our church put on. And
Wow.
I was like, they invited all the business leaders in the community to go to. And so I was like, I don't know who this John Maxwell guy is, but I'll go. It's a business, a leadership. I'm attracted, right? So this was literally 25 years ago this summer, to be exact, because I went to that and it was like, whoa, I, I need, if this stirring is inside of me, maybe I'm not supposed to be planted here. Now, the funny thing is that I left that corporate America and opened up my own coffee shop.
Oh,
Wow.
And so August 1st of 2000, I opened up my first coffee shop. A year and a half later, I opened up my second location and then went on and the next year wrote my own franchise agreement and turned it into 7 franchises. Okay. So
Wow.
that season of my life, talk about, first of all, bull in a china cabinet, no clue what I was doing, yet being able to just run into your purpose and your faith. Right. And so I grew it to 7 locations and 100 little baristas and, having fun into the coffee shop. But that actually set me on the course that I am today, because through that experience from one extreme to the other, it allowed for me to seek out the John Maxwells, to seek out
Mm.
the books. And I became very hungry and I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And how I even came into real estate is because I picked up the MREI book. Didn't even know
oh,
about the Red Book, but I actually didn't even know who Gary Keller was, but picked that book up and I was like, okay, this is 2008. I think I'm going to go ahead and invest in some real estate. And that's how I came into this. And so I would say it's the John Maxwell's and then it's the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Gary Kellers that
Yeah.
actually those three situations just changed my thinking,
Wow.
but also frames me up for success for
Wow.
that. Now, to answer your second question, it's a very good question, because I think sometimes, we all grew up, in the same household with the same parents and all those things, and it's amazing how things turn out differently for each of them. So, my sister, yes, got out of that trailer park. She's been working. I think she's like on 27 years for a hospital, and
Wow.
she's in the medical field, and does outstanding things in her life, has a family and two daughters. So I have two nieces through her. Just really living, I would say, the American dream, the life, and a good home. My brother, not so much. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, he is serving, probably, this is maybe his sixth or seventh term in prison. He fell to the addictions. When my dad passed away, he was 13. And I'm sorry, he was 10. I'm sorry, he was 10.
Wow.
And so fell right into some drug addictions that have just crippled his life. And so we're hoping that this is the last one. He's serving, he was out and doing really well. He's actually back in for a year just to complete a sentence. But, that just shows you that, three kids. I was the oldest, my brother's the youngest, three of us, we all have different paths. And we've used our situation from the trailer park differently in our lives, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's amazing. So true. Wow.
It is truly wild how that happens, though, when you really
Yeah.
think about it. Like Linda and I, Dawn, have talked about that so much, just how people can be in the same exact household
Yeah.
and experience the same thing, and be one way and one be a totally different way. I mean,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. I think my blessing is the people who spoke into me. Like, I started recognizing the differences very early in my life of like, hey, wait, they're different than the people over here.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Yeah.
need to pay attention to this. So it's all the mentorship that we can give back to the younger generations when we can pour into people. It's such a positive thing, because we might say or do one thing that could
Mm.
change their directory, that keeps them out of things like prison or years of addiction in their life as well.
Yeah.
Wow. So true.
We've talked about this a lot before, but what you're talking about just reminds me of the power of proximity. I mean, it's so
Yes.
strong. Just who you have proximity to can completely change your entire life sometimes.
Yeah. So
Yep.
true. Wow. Is there anybody growing up in your life? Dana knows this story. I got to go back and actually talk to the people from the Salvation Army who helped me get out of my situation, get into a foster home, and it was like the best birthday ever, because the lady from Salvation Army arranged it for it to happen in Vegas and happen on my birthday, and
Mm,
just the joy to be able to go back and say to those people, because I know they probably helped tons of kids like me and you throughout
mhm,
their life, but to be able to go back and say, I just want you to know what you did for me and how it's paid off in my life. Was there anybody growing up that stepped into that gap when you guys were kids, or was it church? Was there
mhm.
anything that stands out as you grew up that was somebody that recognized y'all's situation and helped in any way?
Yeah, for sure. Now you're going to have me crying on this podcast for sure. Yes. And I just got to do that. I guess it was about 3 years ago. I'm trying to think of, I think it was about 3 years ago. So it was actually two people. And I had the opportunity. One was my coach in high school.
Mm,
Who at the time when I was in high school, I would have told you she was mean, horrible, threw bats at us, like, I don't know how anything good can come out of this relationship, right? Because she was really hard, and she was extra hard on me. And now as you get older, you realize, because she saw something and
mhm,
did not. And of course, I played volleyball for her and softball in high school for her. And, she saw the poor kids that came in, and she saw the things that she had been a coach for a long time at that season. And so she saw what happens and when you don't stay on the right path. And I was making good grades. So she was like really, really hard on me for my grades, and where other kids on our team was not. And I was like, like, what is up with this? And, when I would make a mistake on the field, she was really hard on me. And so for a long time, I just kind of had this resentment. And it wasn't until I got older that I could look back and I was like, oh my goodness, she shaped me. She
Mm.
shaped me to stay in the lane and to stay focused. So I had an opportunity. We dedicated at our old high school the softball field tour. So I got called to go back and stand.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
get emotional. I got to stand on the field with her
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
and just honor her from the pitcher's mound, and to be able to say that I get to stand today and I can take toughness and I can take
Wow.
hard things, because she taught me at a young age that is a good thing and that I should be proud of that. So that was one.
Wow.
And the other one really, really shaped me because she was my science teacher in high school. And there's one particular act that she did that really shaped it. And it was, I became student council president. I actually talk about it in the book. I became student council president, and there was this leadership conference that was happening, and it was 5 hours away. And the school wanted me to go. I was like, oh, great, but I couldn't afford it. I couldn't get there. Our family had one vehicle that my mom had to use, and, couldn't afford to pay for the registration and all those things. Well, the school figured out a way to pay for me, but that teacher also gave me extra cash so that I could be able to go. And then when my dad passed away my senior year, I still remember, and back then, this was 1991, $50 was still a lot. That was a lot of money for a teacher to give. And I remember her giving me a check for $50 to help me with my dorm stuff. She's like, because you're going to college. You're not going to let this situation stop you. You are on the road to good things. So just those two women really spoke into me that wouldn't allow for me to stay where I was, encouraged me to get out of that trailer park, encouraged me to go to college and to do great things. So I was able a couple of years ago to go back and be able to see them and thank them and just honor them, quite honestly. So thank
That's
you
so
for
funny
that
because
question.
my message today I've been listening to Chris Hodges' messages for months now, and the message today was how we don't have a heart for what we don't see.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you see something, he talked about, he used the example of, he was trying to get he's a really kind of an agitated driver, and he wanted to get on, and this lady wouldn't look at him in the eye because she didn't want to let him on, but the daughter looked at him in the eye, and he's like, please let me in. And when the daughter saw, she then made the mother see. And he just talked about how in the world we've got to open up to see the needs of people and what's going on in their life. And I thought that was such a great
Yeah.
message, and that fits right in with what you said. Somebody was looking and listening, and they saw, and they
Mhm.
stepped into that gap. I think that's our true heroes.
For sure. Taking a stand, becoming an advocate. We all need them in all seasons of our life. We need advocates for us, right? And then we get to be advocates for others. That's a powerful way to stand with someone. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, Dawn. So a couple things. One, if someone's listening, who is the book written for? I know you and I and Linda are all in brand builders, and they narrow down your avatar. So of course we want everyone to read the book.
Yes.
And who will this book really help in this season right now? And then I do want you to talk a little bit about your Kingdom Women's thing too, if you can.
Yes. Well, and that's actually who the book is written for. So thank you
Okay.
for asking me that question, because when I was going through brand builders and of course, my sales mindset, I put my real estate hat on. I was like, I want to sell a house to everyone, right? I want
Yeah.
everyone to read my book. I want everybody to get it. And, of course you go through the exercise and you're like, who's it really written for?
So
And when yes, it was very painful. Because I was like, I felt like I was leaving someone out.
Yeah.
And yet, when I went through it, it was so powerful for me, because when I look over where I am today and the people who I want to impact, it is truly in what I have done. So for the past 7 years, I had led a Kingdom Women Business Leaders group, a mastermind. And it was, you had to be in the C-suite or founder of your company to be invited to that mastermind. And I even got to go to South Africa, to go to Cape Town and be able to speak for a Kingdom Business Leader Seminar conference, and that's who I was wanting to connect with, was the Kingdom Women Business Leaders. So the book is written for women in general, but ultimately where my voice is Kingdom Women Business Leaders. And this Saturday on July 26th, we are actually kicking off our first inaugural virtual mastermind of Kingdom Women Business Leaders, with people from South Africa joining us, across the United States, to just create community, to be able to come together and be able to talk about the tough things that are happening in business, but also how do we do it biblically, and how do we walk through those things with our faith, and how do we align faith and business together as women. So that's my audience. That's who I hope will grab the book and read it and enjoy it, and use some of those practical stones into their personal life as well as their business life.
Dawn, I love that. And also, we're going to have to talk offline too, because I'm kind of cooking on something with that same thing right now. And you need to be a part of it. So yeah.
Well, we definitely need to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is just, it's so important. And I love that that's your avatar. I just think that it's needed a lot of times. And actually, Linda, I think this might've been one of your ahas a few weeks ago, but like where we keep those as two separate things. Like we keep our work life as a completely separate lane than what we keep our spiritual life. And we don't marry the two ever. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, the success comes when we can figure out how they actually are the same.
Yeah.
And you serve the same purpose. That was just a huge aha I had from John's event in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I don't know, the light bulb just went off, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Because this will be so much more powerful and rewarding if I realize that they're not separate, they're the same.
Yeah, totally. You know, Dawn, I was just thinking too, I'm so glad that you came on the podcast, because one of the things that I keep thinking of you is when Rory Vaden, I think everybody has heard him say this now, and it's like ingrained in my brain, but you are perfectly positioned to serve the person that you used to be, or that you once were, whichever one of those it is.
Yes.
And that's you, and that's what you're doing. Like you are actually your picture should be next to his sentence.
You're so kind. I will tell you, when I first heard Rory say that, those were one of those light bulb moments for me, Linda. I remember sitting in the audience and being like I could not even speak.
Yeah.
Because it was like everything in my life that I have been working on came to that defining moment. Yes. And I was like, and it was also an opportunity that I went to my Heavenly Father and I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it now. Yeah. I get it. And, and that's when I finally was like, okay, I have to quit holding back, and I've got to go. I've got to, one, walk in obedience, but two, I've got to go, because now it's like I figured it out. I got the answer.
It's almost like a submission. It's like you fight it. You think it doesn't have any value. And then when you submit it, you're like, oh my gosh. I think that's why I've had every situation I've had in my life, to be at that moment, to realize who I'm here to serve.
Yeah. I think John Maxwell might have said something like that. I remember in my notes from Puerto Rico. And Linda, I think he said something like, once you know it, like once you know your gift, then just go get after it. Yes. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like, and Dawn, that's what you're doing, but just get, like, it. Okay, get after it. Go do it. Yeah. And it's just cool to watch people do that instead of, making excuses or getting ready to get ready or whatever the reason is. Just actually going and getting after it. Because one, God will bless that. And two,
absolutely,
it's so encouraging and inspiring for other people to watch and then say, okay, wow, like if Dawn can come from a trailer park with a 15-year-old mom, then what's my excuse? Like, I can go do this too. I mean, really, that's what it's about.
Yes. Our past does not define us. It's just part of the story. It's just part of the story. We get to rewrite it. We get to write our own story. And so many times people just stay in the patterns because they actually don't pick up the pen. In order to rewrite the story, you've got to pick up the pen. And you've got to actually put pen on paper and rewrite it and do the work that it takes. And
Dawn, the other thing too that I love, and then we'll let people, I know we're running out of time, but is that you could have totally stayed in a victim mentality. And I'm glad that you touched on mindset, but you didn't. And instead of being the victim in that, in that situation, or in many situations, I'm sure in your life, you chose to be the opposite of that and look at the fruit that's come from that in your
Mm.
life. And that's still coming. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I have to say I'm so grateful. 17 years this year being with Keller Williams, because I truly became a sponge of other
Yeah.
people. Quantum Leap from Gary taught me how to think differently, right? And being able to sit at the feet of so many people and just see how their mindset was actually dictating how they were succeeding. I am a kinesthetic learner for sure. And so when I see people modeling something, I want to go model that. And it just fit right in with my personality and my behavioral style for sure.
Love it.
It's so good. It's
Yeah.
so true. Actually, yesterday was Gary's birthday, and I sent him a text and basically said that, like, I don't know that sometimes you realize just you going first, like the impact that it's had on so many people. I mean,
Yes.
just all three of us, our lives would not be where they are today.
Yeah.
So true.
Without, and it's not Keller Williams for everybody. That's totally fine. But for us, it was, and it's just,
Well, and nobody, no matter who you are, who you're with, nobody can deny what he did for our industry, period, end
That's
of
right.
this discussion.
Yeah.
He raised the bar on the possibilities. He made us see bigger opportunities for us as agents that we had never had before. You can't
Yeah.
deny what he's done for our industry, whether you're with us or not, right? Thank you, Gary, whether you're with us or not, because
Yeah.
he changed and broadened and made bigger opportunities for us in the real estate business than we'd ever had before, or probably would have ever had.
Yeah, totally
for
agree.
sure.
Totally agree.
Sure.
Well, Dawn,
Love
we're
it.
super excited about your book. We will 100% be making sure that you push it out. I know it will be a bestseller.
Thank you.
So tell people how they can find the book. I know in the pre-order stage is very important. How can they find you? If they want more information about the Kingdom Women's Business Leader, hopefully I said that right, then
Yes.
how can they get it all?
I love that. Well, first, the easy place where most people go is the Instas and the Facebook. So I'm on all of those social media spots. So definitely can just find me. It's just my name on both of them. So I kept it real simple. We are launching the website trailerparkceobook.com. So Trailer Park book, trailerparkceobook.com. That's going to be a great place for people to go. Yet Amazon has the book right now, Barnes and Noble, christianbook.com, Goodreads, all the major places that people are buying their books today have the book. We're super excited to be in a lot of different spots for it. Yet, could always go to the website or to any of my social handles to find out more and about the Kingdom Women Business Leaders Retreat. Mastermind. The retreat is coming down the road. I can't wait to start looking for that. But the mastermind, for the virtual mastermind this Saturday, they can find it there as well.
And
Love
can we
it.
get the audiobook? You said you had just finished recording the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Does that come out later than the book, or is it at the same time?
Yeah, they're actually going to release it afterwards. And so I think that our launch week is September 2nd that week. I think, within the couple weeks after that, the audio book will come out. I'm also excited. We will be, matter of fact, I think it's coming out the second week of August. YouVersion allowed for me to write a devotional and a plan for YouVersion from my book.
Love that,
I know, it's so exciting. I'm super excited about that. That has been done. Has been edited and approved. And from what I'm hearing, they're going to release it the second week of August. So while we're at Mega Camp, I think that's when they're going to release.
Oh, Dana, I think we have an opportunity to have Dawn do the devotional at
I
your.
just literally, just wrote that down right there.
Yes.
I literally just wrote that down.
Thank you.
I love it.
Super excited. God's just opening up so many, I pinch myself daily and just I tell my husband every morning, I'm just going to go walk in obedience today and just see, because he keeps doing things and it's just amazing. So, so blessed.
Love it.
So
well,
good.
you're awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. And we're excited to be able to support you however we can, and can't wait to read the book, and just so excited about it.
Yep.
Thank
and
y'all.
We'll put links in the show notes. And
Yes.
remember, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please go ahead and do that now. And the greatest compliment you can pay Dana and I is to pass this podcast along to anyone that you think that would enjoy these conversations. And if you have a challenge, an opportunity, or a guest that you think would be great on the podcast, be sure and reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. Dawn, gosh, what a pleasure. Thank you so much. Can't wait to read the book.
Thanks,
Dana,
ladies.
I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. See you then.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.